be rewarded for being very innovative in the beginning. So they decided no resubmission. So the decks that you have right now are the ones you're stuck with at the end of the tournament, I believe.
Yeah, and that's probably why we saw Louise kind of queue up the warrior 3 times. Even though kind of showing off your decks is kind of a bad thing, she only showed one deck. So against her opponent, the other loser, I think she's going to be facing the loser of this matchup here. It is going to be played off stream as well, which is very relevant because if she's going to win that one, she's going to go into the decider match later today, and her opponent will only know her warrior deck. So that's not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things like you have to always look at as a player is the silver linings of stuff as a Hearthstone, because things will inevitably go bad for you one tournament. So just take every edge you can get. Being able to conceal that first round information, and guys, we do it because of the interest of time. If we were to play every single match on Double Elimination, it'd be 10 matches, and we'd be dominating the entire time. And then me and Krip would kind of be like, gassed a little bit. By the end of the stream, we wouldn't have anything else to say, nothing at least insightful. So we're cutting 2 matches out, but we're still going to see the second round of the losers, aka the 2 players to go through from the top end of that bracket. Still going to be good stuff. I believe we're still getting set up right now for Thijs and Amnesiac. But we're about to get underway here. Looks like we're going to start things off with Druid versus Druid. And this is always a fun one. Because we see Ragnaros, that's already immediately different than what we normally see. This is kind of like the old school Druid.
Yeah, Ragnaros used to be a pretty decent card, again, because of that factor where minions that you would play would die to just damage. They wouldn't have to die to damage and then die to another damage and then die to an AoE effect, So just single target pummeling down health minions is so much more effective with GVG and Naxxramas out of the set.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the players to pay attention to are guys like Thijs, who have played a lot of Druid mirrors in his day. And I think a lot of people are looking at it these days and be like, well, of course everyone plays Druid mirrors in the past 3 months, but Thijs has been playing Druid mirrors since 2014 and a lot of open cups and whatnot. I think he's really got this stuff pinned down. Already introduced with some interesting choices with being able to innervate out the Violet Teacher, followed up with Wild Growth, and that's just super dominant board position against a player who has no plays really until turn 4. I mean, Savage was not really a legitimate play, just a 1/1 token.
Yeah, it's going to be Violet Teacher into Wild Growth, so you catch up a little bit. I think the main reason why I believe it's Thijs that made his Violet Teacher play is because there's no card that Amnesiac could have that could counter the Violet Teacher, so it guarantees the board for next turn. While if you play the Darnassus, in the best case, it may have been a little bit better overall, but it could just be straight up countered by a Wrath and be a horrible game.
I really wonder how good this deck is with Violet Teacher, because just because we see Violet Teacher doesn't mean that it's the old variant of Token Druid. It could be just Violet Teacher, a 1-to-1 replacement of Pilot Shredder. But at the same time, it'd be really unique to see Thijs go for that token-esque approach with Power of the Wild, for example, as opposed to some of the other cards you'd see in Druid.
Yeah, well, if you're running is that Ragnaros in both decks?
Both decks. Yeah, it is. Thijs back in the day, along with the rest of the Nihilum guys, they loved Ragnaros in decks. Life Coach as well, RDU, part of that group. And this was in early 2014 or 2015 when they were starting to put Ragnaros in almost every single deck that they had, because they felt like it was really powerful in the metagame. So it's almost nostalgic in a way to see Ragnaros, who is once such a overpowering dominant legendary back in the metagame at the beginning of Hearthstone. People always said Ragnaros, Sylvanas, Cairn Bloodhoof were the 3 legendaries you wanted to craft if you wanted to do very control style type of decks.
Alright, well here comes the second Wild Growth. I think the reservation is because of Mind Control Tech, perhaps. Mind Control Tech is actually a card that you can expect to see once again. Now the Keeper is still pretty good here.
Yeah, Keeper pretty good, but now this Darnassus Ashman will be protected, and that means Ragnaros pretty early on with no signs of the big game hunter yet. I mean, we still haven't even seen anyone draw big game hunter, let alone have it for an legitimate answer for 7 or higher attack minion. So, I mean, that Ragnaros can just impose on the board multiple turns if it's hidden behind a Druid the Claw. I'm kind of worried for Amnesiac. I mean, it's one of those things where the matchup has definitely swung back and forth in the past, but I'm not really seeing much light at the end of the tunnel here. Also, there's a Savage Roar waiting at the end for a board with at least 4 minions. That's pretty intimidating as well.
Yeah, I don't see how this is going to work out. It looks like a swipe next turn might be okay. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And he does actually play around that. Very good plays from Thijs here.
Yeah, that would have been, cashing in immediately so that he can be protected against it too, and he knows that even if his opponent takes an opportunity to develop Wrath, then he would have limited plays, like 3 mana remaining, which back on turn 3, all he had was a Farseer. Whoa,
double Savage Roar.
How much damage is that?
It's wasted just because it plays so badly into a Druid the Claw. You have to Ragnaros here. The question is, do you Ragnaros and pass, or do you Ragnaros and double trade in order to get to face it?
Yeah, I don't think the Mana Crystal matters as much, and you have 2 Savage Roars, so I'm liking the plan where 8 damage goes to face Krip. I'm liking it.
Okay. Well, there's Living Roots, one of the few remaining cards that populates the board a little bit unfairly. But it looks like he needs a card to be much more unfair than that.
Yeah, he needs access to just more mana this turn. Like
he, can you get it? No. You can't just Emperor here. That's suicide. But looks like you don't have any play really. You just have no play.
What about Harrison and Living Roots? Is that too weak?
Everything's too weak.
Well, okay. Let's just saying, like, is that so weak that you just instantly lose by doing that? That's one of the things you have to evaluate.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, that's not. You can't use all of that this turn.
I think this is lethal.
Oh, it's
I'm
lethal.
pretty sure this is lethal. Yeah, because the one attack minion trades for Emperor.
Yeah.
And
I was kind of ignoring that, but
looks like that's 2 over.
Oh, he just actually has direct with the hero power as well. That's just haha, PM finish. I like it. All right, so that very first start with the Innervate, more than enough for Thijs to snowball the board. I mean, we kind of knew as a foregone conclusion that Thijs was super far ahead, but the big takeaway once again that we're pointing out and Krip astutely observed was, is Big Game Hunter even in these decks, let alone being something that you want to play against an early Ragnaros.
I feel the main reason to play Big Game Hunter is if you anticipate a lot of players playing Handlock, but we've actually seen 0 of that. But I feel like Handlock is still a very playable deck. You lose the heal bots, which is kind of a big deal. I think it makes your matchup against aggro pretty bad as opposed to what it is on ladder right now. But I think everything else is pretty good. Like Handlock just destroys a lot of the slower decks, and there are a few slower decks out there. I wouldn't be surprised if some players just ran 3 decks that countered just regular mid-range decks.
Yeah, that would also be cool to see. Although, again, it comes down to how brave some of these guys feel about their decks. Speaking of being brave, Thijs has to go up after witnessing another Dragon Warrior be demolished. But, I'm going to be looking for...
Oh, it is! Big game!
Oh, the Team Hunter!
It survived! And this is a good time to have it. That there are a few dragons that are in the big game range. But I feel with this hand, you're probably going to have to play the BGH for tempo.
If the situation calls for it, yeah. I mean, realistically, you could also pick into a 4-drop that the Wild Growth allows you to play. So we'll see. In the meantime, it looks like already Thijs has that Thijs-ish flavor where he really likes being defensive and controlly. It doesn't surprise me at all that he also picks like a very defensive control deck to bring with the Dragon Warrior, which is a little bit faster than normal Control Warrior, but still very defensive overall. But things like the Farseer, that's such like a Thijs thing to do. He likes putting Farseer in Druid. He likes putting Farseer in his apparently his Dragon Warrior. Pretty cool stuff. I think this is something that people don't really identify immediately when they think of the players like that, but it's a very big trademark, kind of like an artist with a signature MO in some of the paintings.
Wow, very artsy. Now, I feel like even though the Fiery War Axe is not a great play, that the coin has a lot of value because your hand is pretty clunky. So I would like to see the Fiery War Axe here, but I think the monkey would make the biggest presence on the board.
Well, you also have to think too in anticipation of what you want to, what you can expect on turn 4.
Tiger! Yes!
This is cool. So one thing that Amnesiac has actually been doing for a while now, for about a month and a half, was climb to top 50 legend with Stranglethorn Tigers. I think he replaced Azure Drakes in his deck, so he might probably have replaced that altogether, like no Drakes and just have Stranglethorn Tigers, and that just extends your combo range to be that much higher, like 21 guaranteed if you can get it in late stage of the game. Not to mention, there were a lot of minions that the 5/5 would trade into super well as you battled on, so it's an underrated card as well. I like it.
Yeah, the Stranglethorn Tiger is considered a pretty good card in most places in the game. It used to be used in a lot of the mid-range Hunter decks. In fact, I actually used it in mid-range Hunter on the release of PGT, and that worked out pretty well for me.
Don't you mean on the Road to Legend? Crips
yeah.
Road? It was Stranglethorn Tiger it was Coin Stranglethorn Tiger into Ram Wrangler. I remember watching that stream, and you got some pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, Tiger was like the only beast that really couldn't be removed. Like even Highmane seems to be removed much more than the Tiger. The Tiger would only be removed with like Doomsayer combos from mages and like brawls from warriors. That's about it. Nothing else would really kill it effectively.
Makes sense. Another minion that's pretty tough to remove here is the Ancient of War. Is this the opportunity to use that, and would you squeeze into Living Roots here? Because the alternative was to play removal on the board, like Force of Nature.
No, I don't like the Living Roots. This can get into so much trouble. This is like the ultimate brawl board on 5 mana.
Oh, that's a good point. 5 mana brawl boards. Yeah, considering that you eliminate on average a lot of stats from the Druid, if you can like 50% chance to eliminate 10 or 11 power from the board on their side is such a big deal. Especially because one of the things that is really key is that if you're playing Stranglethorn Tiger and you don't have cards like Azure Drake in the deck, your card draw is really limited. And Druid, one of the ways it loses to Warrior, that's like any kind of defensive control warrior, Fatigue, Dragon, Control, etc. One of the ways it loses is just gasses out. That's why Ancient of Lore is one of the best cards in the matchup. So it's like, you already have lack of card draw. You might really be starving later on.
Oh, wow. This is a coin armor up shield slam here.
With a bash. I mean, Ancient of War drew a lot of removal pieces, but at the same time, Druid used Innervate to get this out. So Thijs also feels like he can spend more cards to remove it. Whoa, big time draw here. Ancient of War.
Draw. Also, at the same time, the Ancient of War still dealt the 5 face damage. I mean, there really wasn't much of a loss there. What I'm surprised is that Amnesiac is so reserved with this attack from the Stranglethorn Tiger. Like, don't you have to go through these taunts anyway?
That is true. But you know, it's kind of like one of those things where stealth timing is such a key thing. Like, if you think about Shade of Naxxramas, for example, you start attacking right around the 5/5 range for a lot of decks. And I think because he had such a really good convenient trade with the 3/5 into the 5/5 into the 3/5, he definitely picks this up. But now that he knows like Blackwing Corruptor is possible, even another bash. So I think he was just really calculating it, but I don't think you're in a position where you can
perfect
do that.
here. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, perfect. And you have another Force of Nature drawn, so you have 21 damage follow-up, which is exactly where they'd be if they just armored up with a minion.
Yep.
No dragon, by the way, for Twilight Guardian to activate.
Oh, the Farseer is good enough, and possibly the Slam can draw something as well. Oh, there's a dragon.
JK. Did I say that he didn't have a dragon?
Yeah, mana efficiency should dictate that the Farseer is played. Oh no, there it is, Ragnaros again.
Warrior already used Shield Slam and Bash. It's very clear that if he had Execute of some sort, the Warrior would have used it very cleanly on the Ancient of War. I like it. Hits face. I mean, that's kind of what you want to do, but does that give Warrior a chance to climb back on the board? Thijs needs Execute right now, right? Is that basically it?
No, he's still alive. He just needs Ragnaros to not be cruel. That's about it.
He also chooses to slam Ragnaros instead of the Ancient of War. Oh, sorry, Ancient of Lore. And now the lore, I guess it's because he feels like the lore can't kill the dragon, so he has an opportunity to draw into Execute. And this was a backup plan as well, to be able to remove the Ragnaros, so that's perfectly fine. Are you dead?
No, you are not. You're not dead. I think you're at 1.
Oh, yeah, 1. Okay.
You have to use 6 damage, so the full combo is 21.
Right.
So he's effectively at 22.
Farseers. I mean, Farseer, when you don't have access to a lot of taunts like Belcher and Healbot, is still a pretty underrated card. Like, it still grabs you pretty commanding tempo early on. Druid doesn't have that many 3 drops normally they like to do. I love this, that healing the Ancient of Lore, so that way your board's as resilient as possible. And again, same exact position as we're
there's no outs here anymore. This is done. Yeah, the Warrior falls again. Warrior's 0-4 in the tournament so far, by the way.
If you're anticipating Druid as well, you have to imagine that this deck is even equipped to try and kill Druid. And you know, like, Warrior got the stuff it wanted. Once again, Fiery War Axe on turn 2. It got the early game curve with, like, the Fierce Monkey, 2 Twilight Guardians, a Blackwing Corruptor. Like, what else do you want? Like, they even have Bash and Shield Slam. Like, it's at this point where you just realize that Druid is so overpowering in a matchup of pressuring and ending with the combo that nothing changes, even if you take away the Pilot Shredder and Shade of Naxxramas.
I think you're right, but I think if the Warrior had an Execute for like the Ancient of War or something as devastating as like a Black Knight, things would have been quite a bit different.
You think Black Knight? You think we'll see a Black Knight in this tournament?
I think we've seen a taunt minion in every single deck except that face Shaman.
Yeah, so, but they can't tech it in retroactively. Like, now that they see decks, they can't change anything for the entire tournament. So I'm just saying, do you think we'll see one Black Knight?
I think so. I think someone has made that guess. It's also not really a card that you invest much into putting in your deck in a lot of cases. Like, I think you can put Black Knight in your Druid deck, and you wouldn't suffer that much.
All right, this is pretty awesome. Okay, so first of all, dragons are continuing to be showcased here by Thijs. Again, he's a control player. He doesn't really like playing the aggro stuff. But this is such an interesting next level call. Playing Miracle Rogue in a meta where it could very well be very dominated by aggro because there's no Healbots and Belchers and whatnot. Really interesting stuff here for Amnesiac.
Well, Miracle Rogue does reasonably well against a lot of the aggro decks. At least they used to. I feel like when GVG came in, the minions were just too aggressive, and it was that tipping point that the Miracle Rogue couldn't win over. But with GVG out and the Naxx out, more importantly, I feel like Miracle Rogue is in a fine position. There was that talk about what cards the existing decks are losing, and the BM heal. The Oil Rogue is only losing oil. Now that's a pretty important card if you're playing Oil Rogue, because I mean that's what the deck is named after. But all the other cards are still there. The structure is still there. The combos are still there. The unfair tempo cards and board clears are still there. And those are all the tools that were originally used by the Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, really good observation. And if you think about Rogue, they're still one of the strongest classes based off the core set of cards. Preparation hasn't changed, Backstab hasn't changed, and those 0-mana spells are super potent. And they keep things like the Tomb Pillager. That card is so fun to play with if you're a Miracle Rogue. It gives you so many more options. It's like having 2 extra preps in your deck for the effective cycle and the mana gain. But one thing that is interesting is the Cold Blood to me. That's not a card that you see very often, even in the traditional Miracle Rogue decks, which makes me think that this is not the Malygos version with spell-heavy stuff like the shivs and the sinister strikes. It might even be like a good old Arcane Golem or a Leroy or something. I'm not sure because the Cold Blood is extra damage, right? For the charge.
Yeah, people started using the Southsea deckhand, but that was only because it was a great way to combo oil. But if you don't have oil, then that changes up a lot. It is, in my opinion, most likely the Arcane Golem way of doing things.
Okay, well, this still doesn't change much for the Priest. The Priest is going to hate its life. I mean, Thijs is probably already rolling his eyes from the very get-go. Like, he just didn't want Priest to hit into Rogue. That's probably still one of the toughest matchups that you can anticipate because Rogue is so good at stalling against the Priest with things like Flurry, and Priest can't close out the game because they lack a lot of burst. So, very, very interesting that Thijs can still build up a case for the board, but I anticipate it starting to swing because with 2 preps and a lot of spell power with stuff coming up, it can be hard for Thijs to truly gain an opportunity to close the game in the coming turns.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm having flashbacks to 2014.
It's just that Amnesiac's going to have to burn like his whole hand. I don't know if that's going to work too well, to be honest.
Oh, you mean because his hand will be too full?
No, he has to like start the pressure train. He has to start like the auctioneer draw engine stuff as soon as possible. And if he does that, I think he has to do it next turn, which means he has to burn a prep on Conceal, which sounds pretty good, but usually the turn right after you're gonna have to make some huge plays. So whatever he draws from this auctioneer is really going to decide the game. If he draws like a Deadly Poison and a Blade Flurry from the auctioneer plus preparation shenanigans, he'll be in great shape. But if he doesn't, I think the Priest actually has developed too big of a board.
Well, the thing is, Priest can't really kill this Auctioneer this turn, and the thing is, you will keep the Auctioneer. Well, I guess you can with Light Bomb. Well, is Light Bomb a GPG card? It is, so you can't actually deal with it then.
Nope, GVG. Bomb Lobber's GVG.
Oh yeah, you're right. So it's just Auctioneer Soul Priest cure like the good old days.
No, the good old days was Sylvanas, death your own Sylvanas, and you become the miracle class.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty funny. 2 conceals? Wow. This really is like the old school version of where you have the Miracle Rogue, 2 conceals, like Leroy Jenkins, and even a Van Cleave sometimes to help you in there. I'm waiting to see the finisher of choice.
There's Sap. It's looking pretty good. Amnesiac is still missing a few pieces, but he definitely got a few of the ones he needed. I think this is gonna be good enough. Yeah, he probably just sap out the board.
And Priest has no play this turn. Oh, just kidding. They drew the Blackwing Corruptor, but still not enough. Like if that Blackwing Corruptor even did more damage than 3, like 5 or so, I'd still say Priest is in trouble here.
I don't even know if I'd heal the taunt here. Like, you know that thing's getting sapped 100%.
Just in case they don't. But with Gadgetzan starting with 7 mana.
Oh, there it is. Now Deadly Poison is like perfect. Yeah. I don't even know if you actually want to sap right now. I think you might want to sap later. But again, I guess you're at 12. But like, what burst is the Priest gonna have? Right? There's no burst here.
Well, you can put him on a 2-turn clock, I think, as well, if you just like double Cold Blood and then conceal afterwards, and then just get a guaranteed 24 damage in. It's like almost certain that you'll be able to draw into some lethal capabilities here.
Well, you can do 1 Cold Blood anyway. I think the Blade Flurry play is by far the best here. When you have the attack, you have the Blade Flurry, then you have the Conceal again.
Yeah, that one also makes sense too, given that the spell power gives you enough to clear. And there's just really nothing you can do here unless you have some way to immediately destroy that Conceal Gadgets in. But it can't be targeted, and I don't really think there's a card in Priest's
Two
arsenal.
saps. Yeah, I mean, I think the only way that Thijs would win this is if he drew an Azure Drake into a Mind Blast and just ended it with 6 damage off Mind Blast, 3 off Holy Smite. That would have been the sickest thing ever, but I don't think that's a card that's ran in Dragon Priest, even in this type of tournament.
Nah, definitely not. Especially if Thijs is playing like, you know, Nefarian as well as Ysera. It seems to be more like just drag out all of your opponent's minions and just outvalue them late game with stronger minions. So that means 1 deck remains for Amnesiac, who's on the verge of eliminating Thijs from the winner's bracket. He has the Shaman left, but Thijs also has equipped his deck to keep in mind that aggro is very prevalent. The biggest strength that Dragon Priest has is to kill aggro. It's not necessarily to win control matchups. So perhaps Thijs still feels comfortable.
And I think Dragon Warrior does the same thing. I think Dragon Warrior actually excels at beating up small minions, which is exactly what the Shaman deck has. Even though we've seen this matchup go towards the Shaman's direction earlier, Trump was literally on exact lethal, waiting on exact mana with every single card in his hand being played. So, I mean, that was a game that would be decided by 1 hit point. And it could go absolutely the other direction.
Arathi Weaponsmith. Now, this card is pretty awesome in other formats of Hearthstone. I love this card in Arena, for example.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of the best.
What do you think? What do you think about it in like this type of format? Do you like it when you see it, the Arathi Weaponsmith?
Well, I think it's all right. I think the main thing to take away is that you're comparing it to King's Defender. And if you look at King's Defender and Arathi Weaponsmith, I love Arathi Weaponsmith.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, oh my god, once again, Fiery War Axe off the top of the deck on turn 2. I mean, at this point, it's just following a cycle of memes. Where it's like, Warrior always has it. But that's also a really strong start. 2 Totem Golems to begin the game here.
We have not seen any openers with Tunnel Trogs, though. And that's really where it gets completely out of control with Shaman.
Yeah, the Tunnel Trog with the overload mechanics are bananas. But you know, one thing to consider is that Amnesiac is also keeping his deck very board centric for his aggro shaman. The first thing that jumps out to mind is just the elemental destruction. This is a card that Kolento started using a lot in the end of 2015 with his aggro shaman, because a lot of times it'd be like the difference maker that your Doomhammer can get through, or if you have a charger like that.
Well, you have to use a Rock Biter here. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that the Horse Rider is not in more lists. I feel like it's such a good card. Of course, it's good in any aggressive deck, but I feel it's also good in mid-range and control decks as well. Like Argent Horse Rider, I think is quite fine, even in Druid, for instance.
Yeah, why not? It also gives you like Druid the Claw and Argent Rider, like all those charge minions give you more Savage Roar potential. So it doesn't seem like an awful choice at all.
I think here you'd probably just want a totem. You'd want to set up a bigger board before you play down that totem.
Oh, the Taunt Totem. Now, if they had a weapon, that'd be a bigger deal, but right now it's definitely inconvenient for the Warrior.
Well, I think there's a good chance that the Warrior will play Shield Slam for 1 on it.
Yeah, why not, right? You have to remove minion damage off the board.
Yep.
Just give yourself a higher chance of survival. I mean, it's kind of like we saw the Executes in Eloise's hand when she played this matchup. Execute couldn't do even 1 damage, and she would have loved for it to do 1 damage. So in this case, that might be a difference maker. Don't underestimate how much damage Shaman needs to get through the armor of what Warrior is going to do.
It seems like a pretty clear-cut play. Oh, he wants to keep the taunt. I see. All right. Well, he could have pushed for 1 extra damage, but yeah, he would have lost the taunt minion, and the taunt minion protects the flame tongue, so I can actually get behind this pretty well. He plays the Leper Gnome, thinking it's the most likely minion to die. I think this is a pretty interesting call, because the most likely minion to die might be the taunt. Looks like he disagrees, though.
Yeah, if they had Blackwing Corruptor, I think you also would target the Flame Tongue, so that way you can reduce the most damage off board. Not a good draw here for Amnesiac. Gets like Abusive Sergeant. It's
good
damage, but you'd want like Doomhammer or something really high burst at the moment.
No, I think this is fine. I think the Abusive goes on the Leper Gnome. The Leper Gnome kills a Tharson, does 2 damage face. He then pushes for 6 damage, and then he can even Lightning Bolt for another 4. You get up to 10, which I believe... oh, he's just going to go for all-out damage.
It's like, it's no Reno Jackson Warrior, that's for sure, so you don't have to be worried too much. You can spend it pretty liberally, and you don't lose any damage on board, because the Taunt Totem... it just has 0 attack, so the buff from the Flame Tongue Totem slides in. Well, Blackwing Corruptor is some removal here. What do you want to do, though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, are there really that many things you need to remove? Actually, don't. You don't need to remove much, but Thijs being Thijs is going to have to make the safest play possible. So we have to analyze what that would be. What is the safest play possible here?
The Farseer gains you 3 life, and the Alexstrasza's charge gives you... well, if it kills off the Taunt Totem and you use Blackwing Corruptor... I mean, Alexstrasza's charge has more impact on the board, so I think it average gives you 2 life.
Yeah, but Thijs is going to make the safest play possible. There's just no doubt about that. I think he's even going to use the Tharson to kill that, because now with the totem gone, he doesn't have 3 damage available.
Well, that's not direct
lethal
damage.
No, he has 8 damage, 6 on board, and killing his own Leper Gnome with the destruction is exactly 8. I feel like he might make that play. Ooh.
I think if you're Thijs, you can definitely assume that the Warrior... or sorry, you can assume that the Shaman has like Silence or other things. Because why would you not play on 8 mana that's not direct damage of some sort to close out the game?
Oh, man. I think you bash and armor up. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's actually not too bad, I think, because you can stay up to what looks like to be 8 health. And that's like, if your opponent didn't have Lava Burst or something like that last turn to play, you're still feeling pretty confident. He would have played draw cards, he would have played minions, he would have played spells, he would have played Doomhammer. He was like on the exact mana to do it. So I'm pretty comfortable bash and armoring up here. Even though it looks like, why wouldn't you just play Blackwing Corruptor? You just want to keep armoring up every single turn as much as possible. Even kill that Spell Power Totem. Yeah, absolutely love this play.
Yeah, that is the most defensive play possible. And Knife Juggler's not going to cut it. But the Elemental Destruction is pretty good. It is going to clear out the board, and he's going to get 1 damage in from a Juggle at least.
So you're going to be representing 3 damage. Your opponent will have 9 life, assuming he hero powers. And that means you have to draw 6 damage with your next card. Or actually 5, because the 1/1 token survives.
No, Shield Block is probably it. I think that's
oh my god,
just enough HP to stay in.
And a Fierce Monkey! So clutch!
Fierce Monkey doesn't actually do much here.
Well, he doesn't know that.
Ooh. I think he has to save the Rock Biter, I think. He's got to go for a Doomhammer play at this point. I think you got to Earthshock the monkey and just go face and hope you get a Doomhammer. You're just not winning the game otherwise. There's just no way you can win.
Probably, yeah, because even that 1 damage might matter. Let's see. If he goes up to 14 next turn, if you don't do that, and you're going to need the Doomhammer to hit over 3 turns then. Because he's going to armor up out of that range. So that 1 damage is pretty relevant. Bash.
Oh, the bash!
Well, let's first see what Varian Rin's going to bring to the battlefield.
Nope.
Or not.
And nope. And nope.
Some armies of Stormwind, huh?
Yeah, that was, Ancient of Lore Senior. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, I guess that works. Just armor up 1 more time so he can optimize his life gain. Recognizing on 2 cards, there's no 2-card combination that can outright kill him. He has to draw Ancestral Knowledge into something.
Yeah, it has to be Ancestral Knowledge into Doomhammer Rockbiter, and that actually is lethal. He could have top-decked him horribly.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. That would have been nuts, but
it's still possible. But if he plays Bash, I think he's just out of range. Wait, no, he has a Bash is only 1 HP. That same thing could happen.
Putting him at 1 HP. Oh, you mean the Ancestral Knowledge play?
Yeah, that could still happen here.
The dream is real. But I mean, if I'm Thijs, I'm playing like super duper safe, right?
Yeah, but even still, you're at 16. That's how much damage you do with that ridiculous draw combo. Is this the last hit? I mean, I don't think there's any other thing that could happen here. You're just dead next turn as the Shaman, so... Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Hex! Oh, looks like you have another chance, I guess, but... Yeah, I think you're going to be too overloaded to do it next turn. Right? Yeah, you're too overloaded, and I think you're dead anyway to just the board.
Slam and Fiery War Axe lets you get through it pretty effectively, and then you can kill it off. So that's gonna wrap up game number 4. We have a tied series, and Dragon Warrior Krip gets its first win. We knew that this could happen, but it actually did, and now we don't even know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah. 1 and 4, not bad, not great. Okay, it's bad.
Yeah.
All right, but he's still got the Dragon Priest. I kind of feel like, well, going into it, I felt like the Dragon Priest might have a better matchup. But it looks like the Warrior has more health recovery with the bashes and the shield blocks. The Priest, we haven't really seen much of that. I mean, Light of the Naru is GVG, right? And we haven't seen Holy Fire.
Good point. Holy Fire, it could be a way that you stay alive in aggro. Holy Fire is such an interesting inclusion because it doesn't directly fit the Dragon Priest plan. Dragon Priest has very strong game plan of building a board of overstatted minions and then using the hero power to just make sure that those minions keep getting very effective trades. Even cards like Holy Smite, for example, that card was included in the very beginnings of GVG and Dragon Priest, but you had Vol'jin in it, but now Vol'jin's not included because I think that's a GVG legendary, so it's like you can't really, you don't have as many options as you used to.
Well, this is a pretty sad play. This is the Northshire Helior Northshire play.
I mean, would you Holy Smite this down?
You want to do the Holy Smite and the Twilight Whelp?
Well, maybe not Twilight Whelp because that's your dragon activated for other stuff, but maybe just to keep the board clear so that way you can't lose it to Abusive Sergeant of any kind.
I wonder.
I think it's Twilight Whelp. If the Shaman wants to use his hero power to kill Twilight Whelp, I think you just win.
Because then you Farseer and then you draw a card. Yeah, maybe.
Quickly. Yeah, I mean, you're not playing the Twilight Whelp until turn 4 at best. It's not really worth much. All right, well, this is the slower play. This is kind of like the standard play.
Yeah, but I mean, you do get punished by the worst possible scenario, which is Abusive Sergeant with another 1-drop. And Amnesiac is going to commandingly seize the board with more minions coming up afterwards. Now I think you really...
now you have triple 1-drop. Now it's actually great.
Yeah, big pickup right now. Because Northshire Cleric challenges everything.
Okay, the Holy Smite on the Abusive probably means that Thijs is playing Shadow Madness. I think otherwise you'd want to take the damage up front.
Because the you can take the Leper Gnome and then avoid the damage.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a scenario where you... I mean, so you're saying generally you would kill the Leper Gnome first?
I think so, especially with Farseer as your next play. Because if you have good trades and Farseer is not part of healing minions, you'd Farseer your face. And... yeah.
Well, I would probably say no matter what, you want to Farseer your face. I mean, it's probably a little bit too much of a blanket statement, but you know your opponent's playing Elemental Destruction as well. So if you value your board a little bit too much, and you're not healing your own face, you might overextend a little bit. Whoa, well, that's a really big draw as well. Power Word Shield, so that way you can cycle through your deck and use your mana efficiently. So pretty good stuff here. Thijs just gonna go ahead and favor his board position a little bit and use Power Word Shield second, but I don't think it would have changed the play at all for 3 mana.
There's Wild Pyromancer, but there is the Doomhammer.
With the Druid hero power to give it that extra 2 damage, similar
wow, good point. That is the best hero power with the Doomhammer, isn't it?
Yep. Well, okay, it's technically the same as a Hunter hero power. It just gives you an extra armor piece.
You gain armor. That's just better then.
Yeah. Face every time, and not running Twilight Guardians.
Actually, it's great if you're in Twilight Guardians, because you can just kill them with 1 volley of hits from a Doomhammer.
Yeah, I'm saying, assuming you're not running into taunts over and over, you'd rather
prevent lethal. Yeah.
But Amnesiac is instead going to build the board a little bit. I think he recognizes that Totem Golem gets increasingly worse the longer the game goes. And even though he gets overloaded by 1, he can still coin Doomhammer the following turn. So there's a lot of merit to this play. I like it. And also, the Totem Golem doesn't even die.
Oh, Harrison!
Whoa!
That's gonna be game!
Well, usually it is, but there has been very small amount of games where I have Harrison a Doomhammer, only for your opponent to draw a Doomhammer the following turn and kill you anyway. So, but it is a very hard
play it.
Oh my god!
He's gonna double tap here.
that is a Raynad play.
5 mana, take
twice.
8. Oh, here it comes! Oh, Harrison Jones! Oh, the miserable Amnesiac there. Yeah.
Oh man, is he gonna overdraw cards? I don't think so, but it's so funny, man. What do you?
No, I think he's drawing exactly to 10. There's a 1-drop. No overdraw.
Oh man, and guys, this is the deciding game as well.
Rock Fighter. Little bit less useful now.
Wow.
There's no way. I mean, just look at that.
Yeah, one of the biggest criticisms against Dragon decks in general is the lack of card draw, because you can't draw enough cards to get all the benefits consistently from Dragon effects. You're going to inevitably hit a Blackwing Corruptor you can't activate, or even like, sometimes you just get an awkward curve where you have like no dragons to activate Wormrest Agent, and then you draw the dragon, but then you can't play the dragon like Twilight Guardian because it doesn't activate other stuff if you drop it. So it's like all these different things. But now in Priest have so many cards, you have the option to use optimal removal, and you can get all the dragon synergies. This game looks like it's a lock for Thijs. That Harrison Jones was such a big deal to shut down the Doomhammer.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's any other play here.
I must consider.
It's 3 off lethal for the priest by caballing the charger.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't look like he had any way to do any extra damage aside from that.
Yeah, I think if you also just play it slow, like, keep healing your own phase and playing defensive. That's also a way you can win too. I don't think there's really any rush, but ideally you would probably kill the Shaman quicker, just because even with 3 or 4 cards, they're still very potent. But I like this play a lot.
Yeah.
And also, Elemental Destruction can really wreck the board, though. So there is a way for Amnesiac to reset the board here. Maybe start coming back. I don't know. It's still really tough.
That's the first viewing of the Tunnel Trog. It is there, guys. Turns out Tunnel Trog, which wins games by itself on like turn 3, has made the cut.
Yeah. Well, looks like that's gonna wrap up the series here. Game 5 goes to Thijs, who moves on to play Trump, and Amnesiac will fall to the lower bracket. But what a fun back and forth series. You know, when we saw Priest and Warrior, immediately I was thinking the Dragon stuff again, but this time it actually works out for a person that brought Dragon synergies.
Barely. I mean, that was pretty close.
Hey, I mean, if you win by an inch or a mile in Hearthstone, a win is a win. Certainly in this kind of format where elimination brackets are the way you couldn't go through. So, you know, congratulations to Thijs. That wraps up our second match of the day, which brings us to Forsen versus Brian Kibler coming up after this break. We want to give a big shout out to Geek Fuel for giving us a lot of support for the event. You can check out all their stuff. You know, you can get $50 worth of gear, all kinds of cool little trinkets and neat little stuffs and souvenirs. So check it out. Thanks again to Geek Fuel. And a big shout out to Curse as well for being able to support the event. I'm Frodan, and with me is Krip. And when we come back, we're going to have our third match of the day. Once again, Forsen versus Brian Kibler. It's going to be a good one.
Don't go anywhere.